Hello, everyone, and welcome to Signs for Life. I am Pastor Nicole Martin. You can see that I've moved inside the building today. The construction outside is just a little too much and makes it very difficult to hear, although I'd really appreciate being outside in the beautiful sun. Today is August 19th, 2019, and it is my privilege to be here with you, celebrating life and light and generosity and kindness, and raising up ways in which we can journey together in new hope. As I was discerning today or this week's theme, I was thinking about that movie, It's a Wonderful Life. I'm sure many of you have heard it. It is a Christmas favorite or seen it. And one of my favorite parts of that whole movie is the scene where George Bailey is running down the median of the town, and he is yelling at the top of his lungs, "Hello, movie house! Hello, Emporium!" And he's just blessing with thanksgiving all of these places that have been such an intimate part of his life. And I think part of the reason that movie is, or that scene is my favorite in the movie, is because it lifts up a dichotomy. The backdrop is darkness. But in the midst of that darkness, there is all the marquee lights that are shining brightly in the downtown area. Now, that dichotomy could happen in a couple ways. It could be understood as the illicitness, right? Come here and be seduced away from what is good. But in the midst of the backdrop of darkness, I think those lights are a reminder of joy and life that can happen even in dark places. There is a scene in It's a Wonderful Life where George Bailey is remembering when he was a child and he worked at the Emporium, and he is serving ice cream to his favorite young lady. And Mr. McGowan sends him on an errand to deliver a prescription. And George recognizes that the prescription is wrong, and he doesn't deliver it. And when he comes back, Mr. McGowan is very angry with him. And he even hits George for not delivering it. But George stands up and says, "No, Mr. McGowan, this was the wrong medicine. This medicine would have hurt him." What George recognizes in that space, though, is the reason Mr. McGowan is so distraught really has nothing to do with George or George's mistake or George's intentional mistake, right? His not going to do this thing on purpose. Is that Mr. McGowan had just found out his son had died in the war. Even though that was a difficult period in George's life to have to stand up to his mentor, the person he worked for, someone he loved and cared for, and even though in that moment Mr. McGowan's grief and Mr. McGowan's tension was hard and difficult and caused George pain, that moment was still full of life and light because George was choosing to do the right thing in the midst of a place that was difficult and chaotic. Hard, yes, but he made this choice to seek life and light. And he carried that trauma with him like through his lifetime. And it isn't until Clarence reveals to him the totality of what he was doing that George is able to see that even in the midst of that dark moment, life and light was being ushered in, and that George was part of that life and light. It makes me wonder how many times we as individuals walk in places that to us feel very heavy and dark, but in the midst of it, there are these beautiful opportunities for life and light that we're participating in, and we might not even recognize them. Those moments might be like those lights on a marquee sign that lift up and counter the darkness. But I think some of it's done with intentionality, that you have a creed for yourself that says, this is how I'm going to choose to live today. This is how I'm going to engage the world today. And for me, my creed includes seek life and light. Seek light in dark places. Look for the place where creative energy is growing and brewing, and give my attention to the creativeness of life, not the destruction of death. So on this day, I simply invite us, or in this week, to think about what it means to seek life and light together as an individual, but also as a whole community. Seeking life and light, seeking the bright places in the midst of darkness, seeking the ways in which we can help our neighbor, seeking the ways to praise versus destroy, seeking the ways that build a community up versus tear it down, seeking language that builds the self up versus ripping the self apart. I invite us this week to seek life and light. Amen. Blessings to you all on this day, and may your day be filled with these wonderful opportunities to be life and light to other people. Blessings. Ciao. Mwah.